Hi Leute, herzlich willkommen
But
bei unserer Show.
one
Ihr
thing,
seht, heute
big,
sind wir zwei Gesichter, also zwei neue Gesichter. Schongo kennt ihr ja bereits. Zum einen haben wir Philipp von Big D Germany mit dabei und unseren Special Guest RJ Ochoa von Blogging the Boys. Wir hoffen, ihr genießt die Show und nach der Show, die wird heute auf Englisch stattfinden, zum größten Teil. Es wird ein kleines Rückblick geben und da geht es dann einfach, erklären wir euch, was abging und wir hoffen, ihr genießt die Show. Jetzt ganz kurz noch zu Philipp. Philipp ist von Big D Germany. Ihr habt bei uns auf Facebook ja gelesen, dass wir eine Kooperation gestartet haben. Einfach, dass wir uns deutsche Cowboys-Fans nochmal größer machen wollen und dadurch wird es mehrere Projekte von uns geben und hiermit übergebe ich erstmal an Philipp, dass der sich noch schnell vorstellen kann.
danke dir. Grüßt euch alle, ich bin Philipp. Hat es ja gerade schon gesagt, ich komme von der Big D Germany ursprünglich, ein kleiner, feiner Fanclub von und für die Dallas Cowboys. Wir sind, glaube ich, jetzt im 3. oder 4. Jahr. Und Dennis und Chungo waren beide ja auch irgendwie schon so ein bisschen mit uns involviert. Und dann haben wir einfach jetzt letztens gesagt, hey, ihr und wir ist doch nichts. Wir machen jetzt einfach doch alles ein bisschen, ja, kooperativer, mehr zusammen. Aus 2 wird 1. Und ja, ich freue mich einfach hier zu sein. Ich hoffe, wir sehen uns in Zukunft öfter. RJ, nice to see you. Great to have you on the show. And I hope we're gonna have a lot of fun today.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
well,
having me. I don't speak a lot of German. Ich liebe, I think is I love you or something
Yeah,
very
right.
close. That's about as much as I can offer to your fellow countrymen.
no, that's awesome that you're joining us tonight, or it's night in Germany. I think it's 2 o'clock over there in Dallas. Awesome to have you here, and awesome that you're willing to talk a little bit about the boys. And first, for the German guys that maybe don't know you, how did you become a Dallas Cowboys fan, RJ?
So I'm from the state of Texas here in the United States, and so I'm 33 years old, and so my dad grew up and just kind of loved the Cowboys. I'm from deep South Texas, the border right near Mexico, and so this is just kind of the team that always made the most sense to me. I just loved football, and when I was 16, getting ready to go back to school, a big kind of thing, at least when I was growing up, is you would go and you kind of get clothes or shoes or something just kind of for when you were going to go and start a new school year. And that was the year that Terrell Owens had signed with the Cowboys when I was 16 in 2006. And so that year, my dad, I remember I was with him and he was like, do you want a TO jersey? And I was like, sure. And my dad was like, well, I don't want to buy it, if you're not going to wear it. I don't want to spend this money and just kind of sit in the closet or something like that. And so I started to wear it and wanted to get into it. And so kind of to prove myself right, that I could wear the jersey. And that was the season that Tony Romo took over. And it was just such an infectious thing for me. And I really just fell in love. And it's taken over my life ever since. I'm really grateful to have it serve as my profession. I still can't believe it most days, but yeah, I live, breathe, and am completely obsessed with the Dallas Cowboys.
Great, and I think everyone can see it when you're talking about the boys that you're fully enthusiastic about them, and I think also about some other Dallas or Texas-based sports teams.
That's right. I root for the Houston Astros in professional baseball, and that's kind of a sensitive subject for people who root for purely Dallas teams. If you follow the NBA, I root for the San Antonio Spurs. I lived and worked in San Antonio for a long time, so I'm kind of a citizen of the entire state. I don't have a strong geographic area that I'm really tied to. I root for Dortmund, if that makes you guys happy. Those are all my choices in every single sport that I choose to spend my time on.
Great, yeah. We obviously are not from the state of Texas, but we all found our way to support the Dallas Cowboys. But Philip has a very interesting story here. He's also a big fan of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Philip?
I mean, I have to. I mean, my girlfriend is from Arkansas, so if I don't root for the Hawks, then I probably won't get dinner tonight.
I went to Texas A&M University, and so they're kind of a longtime rival of Arkansas. So I can't say I support you. I do support your endeavors towards eating, I suppose, and nutrition. But that does work out as a Cowboys fan for you, given the Joneses association with the University of Arkansas. So that does kind of make all of your football fit together nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the game against the Aggies, that's my go-to game every year. So I'm gonna be in the stadium on September 30th for sure.
It's a year or a weekend I never look forward to as an A&M fan. They will, if you think the Cowboys disappoint us, A&M will find a way to make it even worse. That's generally the life I've grown accustomed to.
But you guys won last year.
That's
So
true. But I was in college when that series began at AT&T Stadium, and so I've got some personal memories of going with all my friends and just the team ruining it and just having a terrible time. And so that's generally what I think of. But yeah, I mean, we've walked away with a couple. And who knows if Jimbo's going to get this together now? I have my doubts, but we'll certainly see.
Great. Yeah. But how did you find then the way to set up as the manager and editor of blogging the boys? What was the story behind that?
I mentioned I was living in San Antonio. After college, I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I was really fortunate to have a strong support system to kind of help me figure that out in life. And all I really knew was that I wanted to talk about the Cowboys, and that was all I cared to do, at least with my time. And that doesn't put dinner on your table like your girlfriend does, Paul. But yeah, Philip, excuse me. And so I mean, I had to figure something out, and this was kind of in an era where Twitter was starting to become a thing. Podcasts were becoming a little bit more popular. So I just Googled Dallas Cowboys blogs, and I was a reader of Blogging the Boys, but I found a site called Inside the Star. I messaged the person who ran it, said, "Hey, I'm interested," and kind of got started there. And our site started a podcast at that time. So I said, "Hey, anytime you need somebody, I would love to do it." And just kind of started to do a little bit more, started to try to be active on Twitter. And again, it was just this really special time. I don't know that I certainly wouldn't recommend that to a young person now. I don't know that I could replicate it, at least. It just and it also happened right at the dawn of the Dak and Zeke era, where the Cowboys were this really bigger story than usual. And so all those stars really lined up really well for me, and I eventually found my way to Blog of the Boys in 2018. A full-time position opened up. SB Nation wanted somebody to kind of run all of our properties, our site and our podcast and our YouTube channel and things like that. And so I was really fortunate to get that. And later this month, it will be my 5-year anniversary. I can't believe it's been 5 years already.
Great.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, we had a birthday last month. We are 6 now, so we started back in 2017, and shortly after the draft. And my first post was the Ryan Switzer draft review. I really I really like this kid, but unfortunately he ended his career now. So after a short time, my friend and cousin started with me at the page, so it will get more popular. And after that, Marco, our net man, is not here today, but he wants to say hi uh, and some greetings to you. And after that, we started to make our show Cowboys Corner, and uh, Stungo joined us too. So we got some. I think we got the best informed German Cowboys guy uh, in in Germany. So he's the best signing we had.
That's awesome. Well, hello to Marco. That was a really fun time, that Ryan Switzer draft. It kind of obviously they were coming off the Dak and Zeke here, and it kind of felt like they could do no wrong. I remember everybody was so excited about Ryan Switzer, and just how fast he was, and his, he was kind of, I think the way we feel about Deuce Vaughn right now was the way. I haven't really felt that way about a player since Ryan Switzer. I watched hours and hours and hours of Ryan, just kind of thinking that he was really going to take off. And I remember being at training camp that year and just seeing him, and just thinking like, there's no way this dude doesn't turn into this massive weapon. And it just it never transpired, but Ryan Switzer was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't understand why they traded him to the Raiders. So I guess he could be the next Cole Beasley. But for me, I ride with him on Instagram, and I was really hyped about him. But we didn't know what happened. So
It was strange. Sometimes things just don't work out. I mean, he had it all. He was, you're right, and everybody thought like, oh, is this the end of Cole? I mean, Cole wound up hanging on another season, even with the Cowboys in 2018. But it's just, there's a lot of guys who I think we all thought were going to be amazing, and it just doesn't work out. And similarly, I think this time last year, everybody hated Tyler Smith. Everybody thought there's no way that's going to work out. And now, any conversation you have right now, he's one of the most important players on the team.
yeah, it's like with Micah Parsons, it's the same thing. So why do you draft a linebacker like Micah Parsons early, and now everybody is pretty hyped about Micah? So uh, personally, for me, I want to give him the big money now, not later, sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, Micah, I think that's one of those for me that pick will never make sense. Like it was the wrong pick. I mean, because to your point, the evaluation was as an off-ball linebacker. Like you should not spend what was effectively a top 10 pick on the position. Now he became this super freak unicorn monster that nobody saw coming, but they got really lucky on that. I mean, it's somebody who, they bought stock in Apple in the mid 80s and thought it was dumb. They thought it was a fruit company, you know what I mean? And just kind of wound up hitting the lottery that way. But that I imagine Micah's going to become the highest paid defensive player in the NFL in short order, probably, as soon as next offseason when he's eligible. He is something special. It's really difficult to find another player in the NFL that is similar to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think he quickly became also a leader on the team, a speaker for the whole team, and not only for his position group or not only for the defense, but he's, I guess, one of the top 3 or top 5 in the whole team.
Yeah, I think it felt really similar to the Dak and Zeke arrival. Just this like infusion of youth, and I think Micah. You have to, if you're going to talk as much as Micah talks, you have to really be able to back it up. And the Cowboys, up until last year, didn't really have defensive players that could do that. Maybe you count DeMarcus Lawrence in that group, but he was never really a talker. The best defensive players in the Cowboys, like Leighton Vander Esch or Sean Lee, were really quiet. So to have this guy, this almost kind of WWE, presence. I mean, he really is like The Rock or whoever that you just, he tells you he's going to kill you and then he does it. And so it's really fun. I mean, I know a lot of people lately have been upset with Micah for how many teams he supports in the NBA. But he, at the end of the day, he's just a really big sports fan that happens to be one of the best football players in the world. And so that's really cool to see. It's really fun. It's a different energy. And I do think it has helped kind of make the defense young in a certain way.
Great. Speaking of drafting Micah and the new rookies, which pick did you like best in this year's draft, or which made the most sense to you?
Yeah, I think everybody loves the Deuce Vaughn pick for obvious reasons, and when it comes to players like that, you can kind of see their highlights, and they're easier to fall in love with. Um, I've really come around on the Mozzie Smith pick. I think a lot of people were really disappointed that first day. But it makes, the more you really think about it, the more logical it was, and I think the more exciting it is. But if I'm being honest, and maybe I'm just trying to be a bit of a hipster, I'm really intrigued by Luke Schoonmaker more than I was at first. So many people spent so much time wanting the Cowboys to draft one of the top tight ends, whether that was Dalton Kincaid or Michael Mayer or Sam Laporta, whoever your guy was. And they didn't draft one of those dudes, but they did get, a tight end in the second round, and they have a real need at that position. And I know people are excited about Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot, but I mean, the reality is they played a fraction of last season, and so the opportunity is there for Luke Schoonmaker. And Dak Prescott is a quarterback who loves his tight ends. I mean, Dalton Schultz caught 2 touchdowns on the playoff win against Tampa. So I think that we're kind of maybe sleeping on Luke Schoonmaker a little bit. Is he as great of a prospect as some of these other players? Obviously not. But I think he landed in the right position with the right team and the right quarterback and the right offense to potentially utilize his skills in a fun way.
Yeah, I'm just hoping he stays healthy because he already had a small record of getting injured easily. It wasn't a really big red flag injuries, but kind of piling up and missing some time. So I hope this doesn't add up. And which pick did you like the least?
Well, I mentioned I went to Texas A&M, and DeMarvion Overshawn went to the University of Texas. So I'm obligated to hate that pick in some way. Um, and I've grown a little bit on that pick. I mean, I'm obviously joking, but I am curious for what that pick means. I mean, you don't make that pick if you believe in Jabril Cox. And at the time we're talking, the last few days have been the love affair for Jabril Cox as far as reports that are coming out of minicamp. And so all of these things can't be true. I think people were bewildered a little bit by the Eric Scott Jr. pick, especially the fact that Dallas traded up to draft him. But we're starting to see he's getting reps with the first team, and so I think people are softening there. So I think if I have to pick one, it's probably Eric Scott Jr. Because did they need help at corner? Absolutely. I mean, and you can make an argument that they should have taken Joey Porter Jr. Early in the draft.
Right.
But that's a big bet to make, and because they're very clearly kind of out on Kelvin Joseph as help as far as the outside corners are concerned. So Eric Scott Jr. is a small disaster away from being somebody who they really have to lean on. And I know they found Deron Bland last year, but the idea of them of hitting lightning twice or lightning striking twice in the same spot is a little bit low.
Yeah, it's also you had success with Bland, but you didn't have success with Calvin Joseph and Nashon Wright. So it's if even if they hit, it would be 50-50. But one more, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think that that's an important point. And sorry if I sound different, my AirPods died, but we give Dan Quinn a lot of credit, and I love Dan Quinn, but Nashon Wright was Dan Quinn's guy, right? And so people are like, oh well, let Dan Quinn do this, like let Dan Quinn do that. Well, we let Dan Quinn have Nashon Wright, like let's not act like Dan Quinn walks on water. And I think sometimes we get carried away with our love affair for one thing or another. But so that's all I'm here to do is just make sure the force is balanced.
Yeah, I guess that's a lot of common sense what you're saying here. Coming back to DeMarvion Overshown from the university that you didn't want to mention. But he has played defensive back. He has played safety before. Now he's playing a linebacker. And also from his build-up, he's reminding me a lot of Jaron Curse. Do you think maybe this is one of the next hybrid safety linebackers that Dan Quinn likes, and that he also wanted to install with Keanu Neal a couple of years before?
I think the Keanu Neal point is a great one because that's kind of what we've seen, right? Like that's Dan Quinn is kind of I don't want to say pioneered that. We've seen it across the NFL, these kind of linebacker safety, unicorns or whatever. But Dan Quinn loves them. I mean, it's you can see them all over the Cowboys defense, and it's no secret that this is a contract year for Jaron Kearse, right? Like time comes really fast in the NFL, and so contract year for Malik Hooker as well. The Cowboys, obviously signed Donovan Wilson to a long-term deal. So yeah, I would not be stunned if this role kind of belonged to DeMarvion Overshown next year. It certainly seems like they're grooming him for that. And that's, the linebacker position. People talk about like, oh, the running back is dying, running back is devalued. Like who's the pure off-ball linebacker on the Cowboys? Like it's just Leighton Vander Esch, right? Because Micah Parsons is a linebacker, but he's a pass rusher. DeMarvion Overshown is a linebacker, but he's a safety. Jaron Kearse and whatever. Like who you have so few true traditional stuck in the middle of your defense linebackers, and so it's a quick man's game. You have to have enough quick bodies to run with all these wide receivers.
Very true. Very true. You already talked a little bit about Scott in mini camps. Do you have some other scoops, some other insights, or who was really good at camp?
I would say, reports are really high on Brandon Cooks, and I was never not excited about it, but I almost was maybe a little too scared to believe that this could really work, that the Cowboys could just find, that they could have just found an answer to the Amari Cooper void so easily. But it seems they have. I mean, I'm really excited about this wide receiver group. I think I was thinking about this, and I think collectively they might be better than 2 years ago. I know that CD was a part of that, but CD has just, he really, really became an alpha last year, and he wasn't quite that player when Amari Cooper was still on the team. And so, I mean, they have Superman, they have Batman, they have the Flash. I mean, and it's a good version of this, not like a normal DC movie. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's really exciting to consider the prospects of this. And so Brandon Cooks is a quiet-natured person, but I think his arrival will be really loud as far as results are concerned.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I already saw some reports that Gallup and Doug, they are really happy that he's here, and also talking about his presence also for the other wide receivers, and that he could help elevate the others' game as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to think about the load lessening for Michael Gallup and for Jalen Tolbert and even for CeeDee Lamb to a degree. You have to be prepared for for chaos, and the Cowboys weren't last year at wide receiver. I mean, T.Y. Hilton's first catch with the team was amazing, but after that, I mean, it was nothing. And you can make an argument that that's part of why they ultimately lost in San Francisco was a lack of explosive playmakers, and they've restocked and replenished now. And so, we're a long ways away from January when we want to see this team do some serious things, but they're at least on paper in a strong position to do that now.
Yeah, that's great. I think that was also a tweet by Blogging the Boys that there was only one wide receiver that caught deep passes multiple times last season, and that was CeeDee Lamb. So Brandon Cooks, I think, is exactly in that role that could help here and not have the whole load only on CD's shoulders.
Yeah, and early in Michael Gallup's career, he was kind of this deep threat a little bit, not not Deshaun Jackson or anything like that, but I think a lot about the Seattle game that Dallas played in 2020, when it was just this insane like kind of offense when they were in this nirvana offensively before Dak got hurt. And we really haven't seen that. And some of that is Dak got hurt, and they were so focused on running the ball, and then Michael Gallup got hurt, and so they've really been missing that element. And so it feels like Dak is finally there. I mean, he was one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL last season, and so this is maybe the best deep threat he's ever had, I would say, in his career with the Cowboys. I can think of I think of the pass Dak threw as a rookie to Dez Bryant in Pittsburgh. That was such a great deep pass, and not that Dez was this like deep ball specialist, but he just got downfield and it worked. And we know that Dak Prescott can make those kinds of throws. And so to give him a weapon like Brandon Cooks, I know we can sit here and lament and say, well, they should have signed Odell. Maybe somebody feels that way, or they should still sign DeAndre Hopkins. Like in a lot of ways, the kind of perfect thing that Dak needed, as far as like his final infinity stone, so to speak, was Brandon Cooks. He has a lot of everything else.
Great. And thinking about the additions, do you think any piece is still missing with that team?
I mean, you could certainly argue that they need help at kicker. I mean, that's probably the biggest point of weakness right now. And if that's the biggest problem, they're doing all right for themselves, I would say. It's important, obviously. I've spent a lot of time talking about how much I value the kicking position, but that's kind of it. And I know a lot of us are maybe not upset, but confused by what they're doing at left guard and left tackle. What are you going to play Tyler at left tackle? Are you going to play Tyron? What are you going to do when Tyron gets hurt? Are you really going to play Terrence Steele at left guard? Is Matt Waletzko going to play right tackle? Like, we have all these questions because of the various number of permutations they can create along the offensive line. But even then, I mean, the answer is there. They have the right lemon. They just have to make lemonade. And so, yeah, you just got to find a kicker. But they proved last year that they could kind of close their eyes and pick one out. And I know it didn't end well, but Brett Maher was one of the best kickers in the NFL last year until the very, very, very end.
Yeah, and what do you say about the linebacker position? You mentioned it before. More or less, LVE is the only real off-ball linebacker on the team. The others are either haven't seen the field yet very much, like Cox, or Clark has been in the game only in the last games. And when LVE got hurt, it was also a kind of an issue. Do you think there could be some addition after or during the camp, like they added Keanu Neal late, they added T.Y. Hilton late, they added, who else did they add last year or the year before?
It was Anthony Barr who they added
Yes.
at camp. And yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, you need that body, and maybe it is Damone Clark. I mean, the Cowboys obviously have Devin Harper as another option, and but they have snaps to replace. I mean, Anthony Barr played over 600 snaps last year, and so who's that person? Luke Gifford's gone, and I recognize that's not a defensive linebacker in many people's eyes. But okay, is DeMarvion Overshown taking all those snaps on special teams? And if so, then he's not contributing on defense. Then who is? I mean, and that's if you talk about where the Achilles heel is, maybe it is Damone Clark or Jabril Cox or Devin Harper. That second line, and you can't have all pros at every single position, but it's certainly I wouldn't be shocked if first week of August bring somebody in just because it kind of goes that way at that particular spot.
Yeah. One last question, at least from my side. They are now talking about the Tex Coast offense, replacing the West Coast offense from Kellen Moore. Replacing Kellen Moore's offense with influence by the West Coast offense from Mike McCarthy. So what are we about to see, or what do you think is the most noticeable things for fellow guys in Germany that maybe not into all the details of these different concepts?
Yeah, I mean, Mike McCarthy is a student of the West Coast offense, and it's obviously been his bread and butter as a play caller in the NFL. And I think we're going to see them challenge, teams in a more aerial way. I mean, I know that at the NFL Combine, McCarthy said that they wanted to run the ball, but a week later they traded for Brandon Cooks and they cut Zeke Elliott. And I'm not going to say that I don't think they want to run the ball at all. I certainly think they want to in an efficient way, but I mean, they're built to throw the ball. I mean, and they finally have some weapons to challenge. I'm not somebody that thinks that all Kellen Moore did was call curl routes and things like that. I know Kellen has his detractors, but I do think that the Cowboys are kind of prepared to push the envelope in a top-down field. They have a quarterback who can do that. They have receivers who can do that. And so I think that those are the principles but with the Texas flair of running the ball at times, I think that they're set up, and I think they have a lot of fun toys that I can't wait to use.
Yeah, great. That's great to hear. When we talked about this topic of letting Callum Muir go before, we always thought he became a little bit predictable. He installed some new things in the off season, but by half of the season, at least at the last 2 years, teams have figured out how to slow down Callum Moore's offense, and so we thought maybe it's a good thing that they get a new influence now. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kellen is wildly talented, but I think we have a 4-year data set to kind of bear that out. 3 years if you don't want to count Dak Prescott's injured year. It's obvious that the Cowboys regressed and kind of turtled up a little bit offensively over the stretch of every season that Kellen was calling plays. And Mike McCarthy's not a popular person. You mentioned him, and he has a lot of people who think lowly of him. He gets probably the least amount of credit for calling a Super Bowl winning offense of anybody I've ever seen. And so, I mean, I think, and to be fair, it's been a long time since he called plays offensively. And so I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any reason for doubt. But the Cowboys are turning over an offense that has been very, very, very good into the hands of what has literally been one of the best play callers of the 21st century on offense. And, we sit here and we're like, oh, they're doomed. I mean, it's worth having some patience and some trust, and it might blow up in their face. It might all go poorly, but it's not hard to envision it having a lot of success either.
Great. Guys, do you have some more questions for RJ?
If you have time for 2 short questions. My
Sure.
first question is, what do you think about Dak? Dak's in trouble everywhere. So in the comments of Facebook and Twitter or something else. But personally, for me, I'm glad he's our QB. So like Terrell Owens said, that's my quarterback. So that's my thinking about Dak. What's your opinion on Dak Prescott?
I'm glad you brought up the quote, because I have always found it funny that people criticized T.O. for that when it was this extreme act of loyalty. And people always think that T.O. is this like selfish player when he openly wept in defense of his quarterback. I found that ironic, but I agree with you. I mean, Dak is such a wonderful player. He's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. And, I know you guys aren't in the States, but I think you understand how polarizing of a team the Cowboys are. I root for Manchester United as my top, soccer team. And so, Bruno Fernandes sucks. Or Marcus Rashford sucks, right? Like anybody you can possibly think of sucks. I mean, Harry Maguire actually sucks, but like some of the
That's
players,
true, yeah.
some players who are actually really talented because of the attention that comes with the team you play for. That's just kind of the way it goes. And so that's the situation for Dak Prescott. And did he throw a lot of interceptions last year? Yeah, but I mean, that's in a mathematical sense the far and away outlier of his career. Dak is a victim in that sense, but there's a lot of benefits to being the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and he wears, I think, that really well. At least in my lifetime, in modern NFL-ness, like maybe this century, he's handled that position better than most people. It's really, really difficult to kind of take all of the attention that comes with it. So I think he's an incredible player. And I think everyone agrees he's an exceptional human being. His one low moment came after a really unfortunate playoff loss last year when he talked about the refs and things like that. But he has an incredible body of work to support, being a good-natured person in good standing in society. And so I've said this before, if you are a fan like we are, I mean, he is a dream. Like he is a dream of a player. You dream about players like that being the leader and kind of the quarterback or the face of your favorite team. And so, I think Marcus Rashford's that for Manchester United in some ways. Like you just those people are really, really, really rare. And I think Dak Prescott's really rare. And like his predecessor, he won't properly be appreciated by some people until he's gone and it's too late. And that's just the way it goes.
I couldn't say it better because I don't like the facts that people saying the defense played not good. It's Dak's fault. So I don't know why they're saying that. And my last question is, uh, could we invite you for some more videos if it's possible?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the summertime's a little bit busy around here because of my job. Life does revolve around the NFL. So my wife and I, we have a 1.5-year old, and so right now we're like, let's do everything. Let's take them to the pool. Let's have some fun. But absolutely, I mean, I really love talking about the Cowboys. Like I said, I've made it my life, and I really respect you all for your diligence and your commitment and your discipline. It's not easy. I joke about the Premier League or the Bundesliga or whatever. It's hard to watch sports in a different country. I've become a bit of an F1 fan. I finally watched the Netflix show, and it's difficult. Like, you want me to wake up at 6 a.m. to watch this thing? I mean, and so I really respect the commitment you guys have and the loyalty you have to follow it so ardently from such a faraway place. And I'm so happy to see the NFL migrating to Germany. I would love to see the Cowboys play a game there. I'm sure you all would as well. But absolutely, I would love to hang out with you guys again.
That sounds super, super good. In Germany, we say, das ist geil. That's like, it's pretty awesome.
How do you write that out? Like, how do you spell that?
Sorry, what? I didn't understand you.
How do you spell that so I can say it? Or send that to me in a message so I can say it
Yeah,
next
I
time,
will send it
please.
to you in a message.
So if you don't mind, I would like to ask one more question, if that's fine for you, but
Of
only if you
course.
have time. Yeah, because I was wondering, I talked to my friend Paul Stewart the other day from Blogging the Boys UK, and he always like refers to Cowboys as like the world's team. And I mean, obviously, like we have fans all over the world, right? I mean, there's the Cowboys UK, you have the Big D Germany and the Cowboys Nation Germany here, and in Canada and so on. But what really would be interesting for me is like, how is it working like with those people and like Poland and all work together, or does like everybody stuff and it connects at Blogging the Boys? And the second part, at the beginning you mentioned working inside the store, and so I was just like, how is it now that you're blog boys? Like, are you what inside the store does? Is the contact to other like content creators like, I don't know, J-Tuck, Isha Morrison, Jess Navarez, and like how is the vibe in the industry like as a whole thing?
Wow. Those are two really awesome questions. Paul is wonderful. Paul is great, and obviously Paul hails from Scotland. Paul is such a nice guy, and we started a show on our podcast network, and we wanted to have an international flavor, and so Paul was just a name that made a lot of sense. And he's so passionate about it, and he travels to the States a lot too, and so and that name just made a lot of sense, right? Because obviously the Cowboys are known as America's team, and it was a playoff of that. But I do think that oftentimes, and I say this as an uncultured American myself, sometimes I think we here in the States, we think that the world is the United States. That happens a lot. I mean, like I'll use that F1 as an example. Like when I discovered it, I was like, this exists. Like there's all these people care about this. Like this, and they all speak all these different languages, and like this happens all the time. And you kind of tend to live in your own bubble here, and the state of the world is so fascinating, so wonderful, and so beautiful that to see how passionate people are about different things that live in all parts of the world is really interesting to me. And so um, I love finding that out. I mean, I loved when you guys messaged me to find there was such a stronghold of Cowboys fans in Germany. We look at our podcast data or things like that, and I'll see we have listeners in Portugal or Turks and Caicos, and I'm just like, how does this happen? Like, how do people develop a fandom or an interest in something that is purely American? on the surface, from wherever they hail. So I find those stories to be really fascinating and enlightening and really inspiring, honestly. And so I mean it when I say I have a high level of respect for you all. I hope that answers your question. I know it's just kind of some rambling thoughts, but on the other end, I blogged for that first site for 2 years before I left for blogging the boys, and you meet people. I mean, kind of like this, and the way we met, on Twitter or Insta. I mean, at the time, it was it was so much work to keep up with just Twitter, and now I try to be active on Instagram. I've tried to be active on TikTok. We have our YouTube page, and I get random emails or whatever the case may be, and we have our comment section. But it feels a lot to me like, and I don't know what the high school experience is like, or intermediate school or whatever it is in Germany, but it feels like when you would go to school and you would kind of see all your friends in the hallway or in the lunchroom or the cafeteria. That's how content creation feels to me. Like you kind of get on Twitter and you see everybody, and Jay Tuck dropped this, and Aisha and Jess and Haley had their new episode of Girls Talk, Boys Talk, and so you're just kind of, you're constantly walking down the hallway and waving to people and stopping to have conversations, and sometimes those conversations are just a tweet back and forth, or sometimes they're on a podcast in an actual conversation, or sometimes they're a direct message, sometimes it's a group direct message. Like there are so many more methods, and I feel so much older every time I talk about stuff like this, but that exists than even in 2015 when I got in this game. And so some of it is keeping up with that, and some of it is being inspired by other people. I try to consume as much Dallas Cowboys content as I try to create, because I don't have the answers to really anything, right? Like I'm just one person with one opinion, and it is very often wrong. And so I like to be taught and educated by other people, and even I like to disagree with other people and have my opinions challenged and have my stances challenged. And so the Cowboys are unlike anything else I've ever seen, in that there are so many avenues of content that people can consume. People can listen to your show from wherever they want in the world. Like that is the coolest thing. Like we're literally on opposite ends of the earth, and through the magic of this app and platform are having a conversation because you guys were wonderful and stayed up late tonight. And so I remain amazed. I used to, I guess my final thoughts, this is a really popular thing, but people used to refer to Twitter as the best sports bar in the world, because you could invite whoever you wanted in, you could follow who you wanted, you could block whoever you wanted. And Twitter has become its own unique place in the last few months. But that being said, it remains that place for me in spirit. It remains that place where I can go, I can see people, I can interact, I can read, I can fight, I can embarrass myself, I can do all sorts of things. And so the fact that, I have a home now, blogging the boys, is great because I can invite people to it and things like that. But it's a really unique lifestyle and a really unique job. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of it and have a little part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think you have to leave very soon. So I think that wraps it up very good, and a very good final statement. And I hope we can join your little bar again. Maybe if summer is very busy for you, closer to the beginning of the season, where you may have some more insights from all your different content creators and connections. That would be really, really awesome. And thanks again for joining us tonight. It has been really a great time.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having me. Anytime, you guys know how to contact me and hit me up. Really looking forward to it. I don't know what the weather's like, the Celsius, the Fahrenheit, whatever's going on with you guys this summer. I hope it's wonderful, and I can't wait to talk again soon.
Great.
Great. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you so much.
Y'all have a good one.
So, und das war's dann auch mit der heutigen Show. Ihr habt gesehen, unser Special Guest war RJ Ochoa von Blogging the Boys. Es hat uns wirklich sehr viel Spaß gemacht. Wir hoffen, euch hat es auch Spaß gemacht. Philipp, schön, dass du dabei warst. Shongo, auch wieder schön, dass du dabei warst. Ich freue mich schon aufs nächste Mal, wenn Marco auch wieder dabei ist, der heute leider nicht konnte. Bis dahin sage ich, bleibt gesund und bis zum nächsten Mal.